What does an atheist mean when they say, I lack a belief in God? Well, in my previous video, I received comments. People say, well, when I say I lack a belief in God, what I mean is I don't believe in God. I'm asking the question. I'm wondering, as I'm sure many of you are, why don't they just say, I don't believe in God? That is a great question.
Well, it's a question, Jack, that's for sure. I don't know if it's a great question or not, but it certainly is a question, and it's a question that is very easy to answer. I'm going to answer it for you in this video. Before I go on, though, for those of you that don't know, this is Jack, a.k.a. Together for Peace, here on YouTube. I'll link his video in the description. Click on it, go watch his video first so you have context for the shit that I'm going to talk about in this video. So go do that. So Jack, you asked the question, and I'm going to answer this in a very personal way. You asked the question, why do atheists say things like, I lack a belief in deities, or I have an absence of belief in gods, rather than just saying, I don't believe in God? And there are two reasons for that, Jack. The first reason is, if you and I are having a conversation, you're a Christian, I'm an atheist, and we're having a conversation, and I tell you, I don't believe in God, that's an incomplete statement of my position. Okay, because I realize that from your perspective, there is only one God, right? And that happens to be, in your case, Yahweh. But when I say I don't believe in God, I'm not talking about just Yahweh. I'm talking about Allah and Krishna and Thor and Zeus and Apollo and fucking Ganesh. Okay, I'm talking about all of the multitudes of gods that are worshipped at any given moment here on the planet. So just saying I don't believe in God, implying to you I don't believe in Yahweh, is an incomplete statement of my position. A much more complete statement of my position is that I lack a belief in deities. I have an absence of belief in deities or gods. So that's really simple, and that. For you to be sitting there, and I know you're an intelligent guy, Jack. I've had some limited interaction with you on Stickam and Blog TV or whatever, and I've seen some of your interactions with other people. So I know you're not a retard, is what I'm getting at here, Jack. So it seems a little bit strange to me that you didn't come to that conclusion in this video, that conclusion is conspicuously absent from this 8-minute video that you made. For the second reason, and like I said, there's a twofold reason why I lack a belief in gods is more palatable for me than I don't believe in God. We're going to go to you. I want to hear a little bit more of what you have to say.
You know, in the previous video, people posted up comments saying, I lack a belief in UFOs, I lack a belief in aliens, and I'm like, this makes no sense. What you're saying is you don't believe in these things. But for some reason, they thought that continually repeating themselves by saying they lack a belief in something has somehow made that comment have some sort of sense to it, or some sort of understanding regarding this usage of the word lack as it relates to the belief. But it doesn't. I hope to demonstrate that here in a moment. So why did so many atheists go out of the way to say, I lack a belief in God? Let me tell you why. It's because some of them believe that by saying, I lack a belief in God, that this somehow shifts some burden of proof or burden of evidence upon you, the theist.
There it is, Jack, and I'll tell you, you nailed this, but not for the reasons that you think you nailed it. It does come down to burden of proof, and I'm going to explain to you why atheists, such as myself, have had to kind of shift the way that we speak. And this is why. Theists hate the burden of proof. And I don't fucking blame them. So, one of the reasons why I could never be a religious person without some hard, incontrovertible evidence of some great googly moogly floating around up there is because I don't want that fucking burden, okay? When a theist says something like, I'm a Christian and I believe that Yahweh is the living God and that the Bible is his instruction manual to us here on earth, that statement comes with a whole fucking sack of ridiculous burden that you have to shoulder now as a Christian. We're talking snakes, Noah's Ark, you know, the giant big wooden boat with 2 of every animal on the planet on it, and all of the logistical problems that come with keeping those animals on a boat for a year, the global flood itself, for which there's no reputable geological evidence, men that get nailed to pieces of wood and die and then come back from the grave and fly up to heaven. All of this shit that you have to carry around with you as a theist must be super heavy, Jack. And I can understand why religious people don't like having that burden. But rather than just laying the burden down, what religious people try to do is they try and shift that burden to someone else. They try and imply somehow that the atheist shoulders that same burden of proof. And of course, this is elementary fucking philosophy. If I understand it, you know it's ground level fucking philosophy, okay? This is something like a 5-year-old can understand. If I tell you that there's a unicorn living in the woods out in back of my house, okay, the burden of proof lies upon me, okay? You don't have to do any work at all to disprove that. Okay, the burden of proof lies with me. I got to grab a handful of oats and invite you over to my house and go, "Come here, unicorn." You know, I got to hope the fucking unicorn comes to eat the oats to prove to you. Okay, that's where the burden of proof lies. So you were right in saying that was all about burden of proof, but it's not for the reasons that you state. One of the ways that theists like to try and shift the burden of proof onto atheists is by playing word games. And my favorite word game that theists play, it's not the one that you play a different word game in this video, Jack, but here's my favorite. In the minds of a lot of theists, the word belief and disbelief are essentially synonyms. Okay, they mean the same thing. And this is, once again, something you could explain to a fucking child. So it's an incredibly disingenuous thing to say. I'm left, when somebody makes this argument to me, I'm left with only 2 options. Either that person is functionally retarded or being horribly, horribly disingenuous to try and support some, the sack of bullshit they've got slung over their shoulder. Okay? They will say that when an atheist says, "I don't believe in God," what he's essentially saying is, "I believe in the lack of God. I believe in the absence of God." So they're implying that the word disbelief is essentially meaningless. We could just get rid of it because all it means is that I believe in the lack of something. I don't believe in Santa Claus. Well, you must believe in Santa Claus's non-existence. It's a silly, disingenuous, stupid fucking word game. Okay? And it's one of the reasons why I've gotten away from saying I don't believe in God, because I like to try and preempt, okay, the silly word game that I've got a good idea is coming my way so that we can move on to the meat of the matter, so we don't get bogged down in me having to explain the 3rd grade principle that belief and disbelief don't mean the same fucking thing. Okay, so when I say I lack a belief in deities or I have an absence of belief in gods, okay, it kind of preempts that. It doesn't in all cases. Of course, that's a favorite argument of religious people, but sometimes it allows me to move beyond it. So let's talk about the word game that you play in this video, Jack. And religious people are very fond of word games when it comes to trying to convince people to take some of that burden off their back. You're a dictionary lover, I can tell. You talk about the dictionary definition of lack. And you're right about one thing. In colloquial speech, usually the word lack is used to denote a deficiency of something. I lack willpower. I lack intelligence. I lack food. I lack enough food to sustain my body. I lack the money to pay my bills. But unfortunately, if you just continue reading the dictionary, most dictionaries will have synonyms in them. We've talked about synonyms a little bit. Here's another synonym for you. So look up the word lack in a dictionary, and usually the first synonym that you will see is absence. And this is, of course, the context in which most atheists are using the word lack with respect to their belief in deities, okay? An absence. If you're absent from school, Jack, what does that mean? It means you're not there. Well, that's what we mean when we say we have a lack of belief in deities. It's just not there. Okay, all this subsequent shit about truth and burden of proof, none of that comes in because it's just not, it's absent from us as atheists. I don't believe for a second that you don't understand this. And that's really what it comes down to, Jack, and I think you know I'm right. Won't ever hear an admission that I'm right, but I think you know I'm right. I think that you understand everything that I've said. In fact, I think you understood that before you sat down and made this disingenuous video. But I think that you, like so many other religious people who are interested in talking about their religion with non-believers, are more interested. You're not really interested in having that discussion. What you're interested in doing is taking that giant sack of bullshit that you carry around on your back as a Christian and taking a few items out of it and passing it over to the atheist, making the atheist share half of that burden. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not willing to. My advice to you, Jack, here in closing, if you're tired of carrying around that heavy load of bullshit, if you're tired of carrying around that big burlap sack full of fantasy and downright scientific impossibility, if you're tired of that, do what most atheists did at some point in their lives. Lay the burden down. Okay? But for the love of God, For the love of God, Jack, quit trying to shift that burden. Quit trying to put responsibility for that burden off onto somebody else, because it makes you look like a disingenuous douchebag. There you go. That's all I've got for you, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.